Hey everyone, this is Steve from GamersNexus.net, and today we're looking at Forced, the new co-op tactical arena combat game by Beta Dwarf. I previously voiced a video tutorial showcasing the basic combat mechanics about a year ago, and that was when the game was in beta. It's massively improved since then, and is officially released in full capacity as of today. And you'll find the full written review linked in the description below. Click on that if you want some more detailed analysis to see if the game is really worth it for you as a player. And this supplemental video component aims to highlight the gameplay mechanics in more depth and give you a bit of a visual look at how it actually works with the words I've written. So to catch everyone up, Forced is a freshly released arena brawler style game with a couple of unique mechanical inflections that improve the longevity and kind of differentiate it from all the other hack and slashers out on the market. So to give you a quick idea, if you've played the Gauntlet series, if anyone can remember arcades from 1985, or if you're like me and played them after it was released, the Gauntlet series and specifically Gauntlet Dark Legacy kind of give you a good idea for the top level play of Forced, but it's a lot deeper than hitting things with metal sticks, right? So there are abilities involved, just like most action adventure games these days, but Forced is really pretty heavily catered toward a co-op audience, just like the Gauntlet games, and solo players will still have fun just fine. You'll get through the game. It is scaled for the number of players, so it won't be overly difficult. You'll just get the most out of the experience if you're joined by a couple friends. It supports up to 4 simultaneous players in campaign and survival co-op modes. There are 4 character classes in the game, so that does kind of fit with the co-op 4-player support. And each class builds off the other's abilities, so playing with at least one other gamer will really help build the level of tactical interaction within the arena. So here's why that is. The game mechanically boils down into a couple of key elements. First, you have hitting stuff with sharp things. That's always a pretty big element in any brawler hack and slash game. Second is using abilities tactfully to efficiently dispatch each of the unique enemies in the game. There are different types of enemies that require or are catered to different abilities of the character classes. And then third is deploying the game's Spirit Mentor to activate on-map objects, and that's the biggest difference with Forced, and the one you're probably least familiar with if you haven't seen my previous video. But before we go off the deep end on mechanics discussion, which I will do in a future video for Forced specifically, let's step back and look at a more zoomed out view of Forced, the game, and who it's for. So after playing it for several hours, and before giving you more analysis, I would like to say that I think the game is most for players who would like to sit down, and I'm quoting my own review here, linked below, who'd like to sit down with friends locally or online, because it does support local cooperative play, and just basically enjoy a simple yet tactical hack and slash combat game without a whole lot of competition. It is a bit more casual if you play it that way, and basically spend a night screwing around with new strategies and having a good time in some pretty challenging combat scenarios. So if that sounds like something you'd like, or you and your friends would like, then definitely check out Forced, look more into it. I also think players who enjoy time trials and competing on ladders online, especially solo players who like a challenge and kind of like to pit themselves against other players and ladders, they would probably like Forced as well, especially if you favor ability-based combat. And all that said, there is actually an underlying story. Basically, I'm not going to get too into it here, but you are a captive fighter from a tribe, and you're just being put through a series of arena trials to prove your worth, kind of like the slaves of the Roman Empire would be in the gladiatorial arenas and the original Colosseum. So that's kind of where they draw their inspiration. It is a pretty cool story for an indie game. I was actually impressed with it, and I thought the voice acting was very impressive as well in several scenes anyway. So it's not like that cringeworthy voice acting that a lot of indie and Kickstarter games have. It is legitimately good, and it does kind of propel the game forward and keep you interested. Soundtrack is very good, and the art, as you can see on the screen, isn't exactly technically advanced in terms of it doesn't have high poly models and crazy stuff like that. So it is pretty accessible to different PCs. You'll probably be able to play it on Intel HD 4000 IGPs, absolutely no problem. You can play it on APUs, absolutely no problem. And the aesthetic, though, that's the important part. The aesthetic, the overall cohesiveness of the visuals is very good. I think it's pretty pleasing to the eyes. It's not too stylized, and it's not like borderline cartoony, but it isn't taking itself too seriously either. Let's jump back to gameplay for a second now that we've covered the basics and who the game is targeted for. So gameplay, specifically with multiple players in co-op mode, is centered around calling Balafus around the map and activating different objects. These cannot be activated by the players, so you have to actually physically fly the Spirit Mentor through these objects, thus activating, deactivating, or destroying them. And this is really where gameplay deviates from the standard hack and slash arena brawlers. So other than Balafus flying through things, as you can see on the screen constantly through this video, you also can mark enemies, and this is done simply by hitting them, just like in D&D 4th edition you can mark them. As you apply marks, your abilities and your friends' abilities will do extra damage or have additional side effects to the enemies. So this creates a new layer of depth with strategy. So it suddenly becomes very important which enemy you're hitting. You don't just like spam all your abilities like in a lot of these other games, because that won't work. So just spam clicking and spam slamming the ability buttons is not advisable. It actually does take a bit of thought and tactics to effectively dispatch these opponents before they swarm you, and that is what happens in this game. If you don't take them out efficiently, then you will get outnumbered and taken down. And ultimately, the boss battles are actually very challenging. The game itself is pretty challenging. Even the puzzles, which for the most part were not too mentally straining, did get a bit more difficult as the game progresses in level here. So I think it's pretty solid overall as a game. The mechanics are very fluid. It's mechanically intuitive, so it's very pick up and play, but a lot of extra depth there as well. It's a good game for having a couple friends over. I do have trouble with a couple of things though. So for example, I think the information conveyance could be a bit better. There's a bit of an issue with new players when I was observing people play, where they have trouble locating their own character in the mess of chaos and all the combat in the arena. So that can be pretty difficult to keep playing when you can't even find your own character. And other than that, there were a couple camera angle issues in boss battles where right when we were getting cornered and really needed the camera to work properly, it would get thrown through a cliff or something and obstruct our view. So that is an issue. I think the developers can work on that though. These are not things that would stop me from buying the game, but it is something I wanted to warn you all about. So keep that in mind. End all be all, I think it's a great game. I do think it has a very specific audience of players who want to kind of play with their friends or are very competitive in a solo environment against other people on leaderboards, kind of like Trine. If you like Trine, you might like this. If you like Gauntlet, you might like this. And that's pretty much all there is to Forced. So I will be giving out some keys on Twitter and Facebook in the future. Check those out. Go to the links in the description below. Check out the full review. And let me know if you have questions. I will see you all next time. Peace.